Throughout his 50 years in Hollywood, Walt Matthau never gave up. At one point, he referred to Streisand's fart as having more skill than her entire body, mocking studio executives and telling directors to go to hell. Although it has been forgotten, there was a negative incident in a 1995 interview that is never discussed. They were making records. The inquiry started out in a typical manner. Then the moment arrived. Matthau appeared to get up, remove his microphone, and walk away. Because of what transpired next, this talk was kept under wraps for 30 years. On October 1st, 1920, Walt Matthau was born on New York City's Lower East Side. His mother, Rose Borolski, had fled Lithuania to escape abuse and poverty. Milton Matanskaisky, his father, was a multi-talented man from Kiev. He worked as a market vendor and an electrician. For them, it was difficult. On the Lower East Side, their family was just one of many. There were almost 500,000 Eastern European Jews living in the tiny area of New York. There were many of people on the streets. The dwellings were becoming worse. Everywhere there was disease. People barely made it. It was a horrible, foul-smelling horror, as Walter would later describe it. That was his world as a kid. When Walt was just 3 years old, his father abandoned him. He walked away without saying anything. When Walter learned of his father's passing, he was not 15 years old. Bellevue Hospital sent me a letter in the mail. That was how he found out. Rose was responsible for looking after Walter and his older brother, Henry. She worked long hours producing women's undergarments. The salary was low. It was a lengthy process. Every day, she dropped the boys off at the Daughters of Israel nursery so she could leave for work. She paid $1 a week for that. Because of the tension, Rose was severe and even cruel. He matured quite rapidly. There was nothing else to do. He had to become tough in order to care for himself. They resided in a succession of cold water apartments. There was no heat or hot water in these locations, and the restrooms were frequently shared. On occasion, they had to use the restroom shared by the entire floor. The rent was always difficult for them to pay. They would have to find another place to live if the renter evicted them. Walter recalled how, to get away from the discomfort, he would hide in the common restroom and read Shakespeare. During the Great Depression, everything went horribly wrong. His mother's meager earnings were never enough. Being hungry, chilly, and constantly moving, it all shaped him into the person he is now. He developed the ability to laugh at his misfortunes. He discovered how to survive. By the age of 6, Walter had put in a lot of labor. On the roof of his home, he operated a card game known as Bankers Brokers. He sold ice cream, soda, and candy at local Yiddish theaters. A large number of individuals sought to escape the movies. He watched TV and sold them items. He got his first taste of show business there. Through playing cards, selling goods, and observing, he developed his ability to read people and recognize possibilities. When he was 11 years old, he received his first role. It played a minor role in the play The Dishwasher. Each show brought in 50 cents for him. He made a decent living from such sales, and he continued working even during breaks. During breaks, he continued to work the stands and sell ice cream and refreshments. After high school, it took Walter Matthau some time to pursue acting. The people were struggling. Finding a job was difficult. Matthau completed any task assigned to him. The government established the Works Progress Administration to assist people in finding employment during a difficult period for America. One of his earliest occupations required him to travel far from New York. He found work in the woods after moving to Montana. Matthau put in a lot of effort in the untamed forest, creating paths and planting trees. He learned the value of hard effort from his difficult life. Matthau also held an intriguing second job. He was employed by the WPA to train police officers in New York City how to box because he had boxed as a child. He maintained his fitness and made many new friends, from gruff street police officers to youthful men eager to learn. The tales and lessons he took away from these early experiences will live in his memory forever. Matthau acted without hesitation when World War II erupted. In 1942, he enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Forces. He was placed in command of the 453rd Bombardment Group's radios and guns by the 8th Air Force. His work was dangerous. In addition to using machine guns to protect the bomber, he ensured that there were means of communication throughout flights. When Europe was under Nazi rule, he flew B-24 Liberators over it. There were other Star-to-Bees in the sky besides Matthau. The group was led by the well-known actor James Stewart. Together, they flew across France and Germany while seeing the atrocities of war. Matthau lived and worked at RAF Old Buckingham in Norfolk, England. He rose through the ranks to become a staff sergeant. He needed 6 battle stars to obtain them. Strikes over Berlin were part of his life. On D-Day, he supported the assault. With his assistance, important German locations were bombed. These were extremely risky tasks. Thanks to his skill, courage, and a little bit of luck, Matthau survived, while many others did not. After the war, Matthau returned home. He used the GI Bill to study acting at the New School's dramatic workshop in New York. He learned from renowned German filmmaker Erwin Piscator. Piscator was renowned for his audacious political performances. By emphasizing honesty and genuine emotion, Matthau transformed his behavior. Among his pupils were future celebrities Rod Steiger, Tony Curtis, and Marlon Brando. It was at school when Matthau's life changed. It improved his skills and introduced him to people who would transform American cinema and film. Matthau made his first lucrative stage engagement in 1946. His first Broadway role was in Anne of the Thousand Days. He wasn't the protagonist. He played Cardinal Wolsey in place of Percy Warham, but that was a beginning. Before long, Matthau was required to perform 7 distinct roles in one show. Although it was challenging, it helped him learn how to concentrate and perform on stage. In these formative years, he prepared himself for a lengthy and prosperous career. When television first appeared in the 1950s, it was a novel task. Matthau looked directly at it. Many actors struggled to make ends meet between their stage assignments. Some even worked at Macy's selling athletic wear. Matthau, however, appeared on live TV. He appeared in an incredible 158 programs in that 10-year span. These included Robert Montgomery Presents, Omnibus, Goodyear Theater, Armstrong Circle Theater, and Studio One. It was laborious. The performances took place in real time. It was impossible to make a mistake. But Matthau was excellent. He was one of the most adaptable and reliable players in New York, because he was always on the clock. Matthau's career had changed significantly by 1955. He was the main character in Will Success' Spoil Rock Hunter. There were 444 performances of the play. He was adored by everyone for his charm and cunning. He starred opposite Burt Lancaster as a villain in The Cookian, his film debut that same year. The film earned $2.6 million, which is an excellent outcome. Matthau became well known as a starring figure in plays and films as a result of all of these factors. However, Matthau continued to work in television until 1965. That year, everything changed. His performance in the Broadway production of The Odd Couple earned him a Tony Award. He co-starred with Jack Lemmon in The Fortune Cookie. His portrayal of the cunning attorney Whiplash Willie earned him an Oscar. Matthau was able to earn money without having to work on television after that. At last, he had completed the task. Early in his career, Walter Matthau's gambling addiction took an unexpected turn. In 2 weeks, he lost $183,000. Better yet, it wasn't baseball season yet. That money was squandered on pointless spring training games that are so unpredictable that nobody takes them seriously. This was more than simply a setback for a budding artist hoping to become a Hollywood star. The mess was horrible. At the time, he was gambling excessively since so much money, more than $13,000 per day, went swiftly. It severely damaged his money. However, the harm did not stop there. The psychological harm was severe. He was irrevocably altered by that incident. It marked the start of a period of trouble that would last for years. His experience demonstrates that even the most adored and well-known celebrities may succumb to addiction when the stakes are this high. Matthau turned to mafia loan sharks to obtain funds to cover his losses. He was frightened by the move. The last thing you wanted was to owe these guys anything. The interest rates were insane. The worries were valid. For 6 long years, he produced just enough money to cover his expenses and maintain his safety. He didn't live a better life with the money he received. To keep nasty guys off his back, he immediately put it to use. As he became more well-known, he was constantly afraid and made an effort to keep one step ahead of anyone who would harm him. Deep scars were left by the period. It altered his perspective on danger, money, and himself. According to Matthau, during his career, he lost roughly $5 million in gaming. "I've made $50 million as a movie star, if you'll pardon the expression, and I've given most of it to the bookies." He was telling the brutal truth, and he meant it. Although he gained a lot of money, he lost the most of it at the betting tables and racetracks. He was not pleased either. According to Matthau, gaming is a horrible activity. It wasn't fun. It wasn't thrilling. He was merely making every effort to correct an internal issue that had never felt right. He makes it abundantly evident in his statements that addiction may kill anyone, regardless of wealth. He displayed his gaming stress in ways that few would anticipate. Matthau created an indelible groove in his thumb. For years, he wore down his fingernails by biting them while watching races and games. Being in that rhythm was more than just a habit. That was evidence of the daily hardship he endured. Friends and reporters witnessed it. They observed how gaming had altered his physically in addition to his emotions and finances. Years of tension and remorse were silently conveyed by that mark on his thumb. Something went wrong in 1966 while Walter Matthau, Jack Lemmon, and Billy Wilder were filming The Fortune Cookie. On November 27th, he suffered a serious heart attack and passed out on set. Even though he was only 46, years of smoking up to 3 packs a day, playing video games all night, and not exercising had caught up with him. The group was taken aback. Work was halted for months while Matthau battled for his life. Doctors warned him that unless he made some significant adjustments, he wouldn't survive another year. After that incident, he had to seriously consider what he was doing to himself. Matthau was someone else after his heart attack. He had been addicted to smoking for years, but he finally quit. He stopped losing a lot of money gambling and at racetracks. Instead, he discovered walking, which he enjoyed. On the streets and beaches close to his Pacific Palisades home, he ran 15 miles every week. This was what he did every day. To appreciate the ocean air, he varied his speed, moving slowly at times and swiftly at others. His health was no longer the only concern. According to friends, he grew calmer and more concentrated, and he even invited others to join him. He was like a teacher for leading a good life, she remarked. But one heart attack wasn't the end of health concerns. In 1976, Matthau underwent heart surgery. In those days, open heart surgery was risky. They would have mostly retired. Not Matthau. After a few months, he immediately returned to his job. In his 70s, he was still active and a member of the Bad News Bears. When others asked him whether he was going to quit, he would laugh it off. In his own words, "Retirement is alien to my vocabulary." Even after experiencing further cardiac issues in the 1980s, he continued to perform. He produced some of his best work around that time, such as The Odd Couple in 1998. He frequently claimed that he had a new lease on life after his first heart attack. He claimed that it caused him to reflect on his priorities. He valued his family, particularly his son Charles. He picked the portions that meant a lot to him, rather than aiming for fame. He advocated for heart health, and advised people to avoid his blunders. Matthau's fire had not gone out, despite his growth. He and Barbra Streisand had a horrible altercation while filming Hello Dolly in 1968. She was 26 and he was 48 years old. They differed greatly from one another. Young and eager, Streisand wanted to try things repeatedly until she got them correctly. Matthau found it arrogant. He became enraged and referred to her as Miss Poison, as though she were poison. Unless it was specified in the screenplay, he would never be in the same room as her. They nearly put a halt to the manufacturing because of how badly they fought. Despite the film's $20 million budget at the time, the attacks continued. One of the cruelest things I've ever heard on a Hollywood set was when Matthau said to her, "I'm more talented in my little fart than she is in her whole body." In addition to calling her strange, he claimed that she was a boa constrictor, and that she rose to fame before learning how to act. In the wedding scene, Matthau refused to kiss her because their relationship had gotten so nasty. The director's ability to stage the kiss such that viewers could notice the gap between their faces required some finesse. Matthau became so enraged that he showed Richard Zanuck, his supervisor. He questioned me. "Do I need an ulcer? Do I need a heart attack?" However, Zanuck's only response was, "The movie isn't called Hello, Walter." Streisand was the star. Instead of supporting him, the studio supported her. And the set stress became as well known as the film itself, which, although being extremely expensive to produce, failed miserably at the box office. When Walter Matthau won an Oscar in 1966 for The Fortune Cookie, his life was forever altered. He wasn't a big star before that, but he was widely recognized. In Billy Wilder's incisive comedy, Matthau as Whiplash Willie Gingrich, a cunning lawyer with a sharp sense of humor and gritty appeal. The film was released in October 1966, and it was his first collaboration with Jack Lemmon. That duo rose to prominence in Hollywood and collaborated on 10 films over more than 3 decades. Additionally, he received the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor at the 39th Academy Awards in April 1967, despite the fact that he suffered a heart attack during filming, which caused the schedule to be delayed by months. He defeated well-known figures like George Segal and James Mason. Following that victory, he quickly rose from a supporting role to the lead, and Whiplash Willie became one of the most iconic comedy characters. Only a year earlier, in March 1965, Matthau had established himself on Broadway. He portrayed Oscar Madison in The Odd Couple on stage at the Plymouth Theatre. He had excellent chemistry with Art Carney, who portrayed the finicky Felix Ungar, and his sloppy, sardonic reporter lit up the stage. An incredible 964 performances of the play were made. For his portrayal as Oscar, Matthau won the Tony Award for Best Actor in a Play. He had 2 Tonys. Even unusual was the fact that Matthau, then 44, had never before been the star of a Broadway production. His first was for A Shot in the Dark in 1962, but he was a huge star because the character was so perfect for him. Its popularity led to a 1968 film adaptation, a television series, and several replays. Both Matthau and his Oscar Madison rose to prominence. It's funny that Matthau first intended to play Felix Ungar rather than Oscar. Oscar was too easy, according to Nathaniel, because it was too much like him. Simon immediately told Matthau to play Oscar or find another role, despite Mathau's strong desire to play the tidy and anxious Felix. Even after the show became popular, Matthau often stated in interviews that he could have performed better as Felix. Director Mike Nichols rejected his suggestion that he and Art Carney should trade roles after a year. Later, Neil Simon stated that it was difficult to imagine Matthau as anything other than Oscar. It's amazing how close we came to drastically altering The Odd Couple. Matthau was well liked by Neil Simon, the greatest instinctive actor I've ever seen. Simon compared Matthau to Oscar Madison because of his mannerisms, slouch, worn-out appearance, and dry sense of humor. Simon felt that Matthau's attitude made the play come to life, and his droopy face and 6'3" height allowed him to make a basic line funny with the correct timing. Even George Burns said Matthau didn't need funny lines because he was fearless. Matthau's mix of charm and sharp delivery helped make Oscar Madison one of the great characters in American comedy. Matthau's big screen success didn't stop with The Fortune Cookie. In 1971, he starred in Cock, directed by Jack Lemmon. Matthau played an elderly widower who befriends a pregnant teen, earning an Oscar nomination for Best Actor at the 44th Academy Awards. It showed he could do more than play the grumpy guy. Then in 1975, he teamed up with George Burns for The Sunshine Boys, playing one half of a feuding comedy team. That role earned him another Best Actor nomination at the 48th Academy Awards. He lost both times, first to Gene Hackman for The French Connection, and then to Jack Nicholson for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. But those nominations confirmed what everyone already knew. Matthau was one of the best, a master at making audiences laugh and feel at the same time. Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon lit up the screen together like few duos ever have. Between 1966 and 1998, they starred in 10 films side by side. Lemmon did more than just act with Matthau. He directed him in Cock in 1971. Their relationship was genuine on and off screen, and Mathau's life was equally full of drama and love off-screen. Both critics and fans referred to them as one of the most successful pairs in Hollywood history, and audiences continued to love them as they grew older. Grumpy Old Men earned over $70 million in the US, which is a significant sum of money for a comedy starring actors in their 70s. Matthau married Grace Johnson in 1948 and had 2 children, David and Jenny. The marriage ended in divorce in 1958 because Matthau owed hundreds of thousands of dollars. His fortunes changed when he starred in the Broadway hit Will Success Spoil Rock Hunter in 1955, and met Carol Marcus Soyan, who had been involved in several scandalous relationships, including 2 marriages and divorces to the well-known writer William Soyan. Matthau and Carol married in 1959 and had a son named Charles. Their marriage lasted more than 40 years, which is not common in Hollywood. Carol's memoir, Among the Porcupines, described their story with warmth and a sharp sense of humor. Carol's life was colorful before she met Matthau. She was friends with celebrities, and Truman Capote based Holly Golightly in Breakfast at Tiffany's on her. She married William Soyan for the first time in 1943, and the marriage lasted 6 years. They tried again in 1951, but the marriage lasted only 6 months. She later said she had to see it again for herself because she couldn't believe how bad it was the first time. Matthau ridiculed his wife's propensity for lying, saying, "He found a liar." Matthau also had a strong relationship with his son Charles. Carol herself said, "I love you because you know I'm lying and you let it go." She's wild about him. Walter was always proud of his son and called him his pride and joy. His long marriage to Carol was more than just love. It changed his life. He said she brought light and order to his world. Their home was filled with flowers, dolls, and other whimsy things. They were still very close after more than 40 years. They went to games, concerts, and film shoots together. And when Charles became a director, he gave his dad a lead role in The Grass Harp in 1995, which was based on a Truman Capote story and demonstrated their creative connection at its best. She once remarked, "He's still the one." Walter Matthau's career took off again in the 1990s when he played Max Goldman, a smart CIA agent who, after being fired, decided to get back at his bosses by writing a book that revealed all their secrets. He also played a tired, haunted San Francisco cop who was chasing down a mass shooter who killed 8 people on a bus, including his partner, in The Laughing Policeman, 1973, a film that opened with a shockingly violent massacre. Matthau's cop wasn't a clean-cut hero. He was tired, angry, and desperate for justice. The film, directed by Donald Petrie, showed Matthau as a grumpy neighbor who had been feuding with Jack Lemmon's character John Gustafson for decades. Their endless rivalry took a funny turn when a new neighbor, Ariel, played by Anne Margaret, moved in and caught both their eyes. This kicked off a fresh wave of antics and heartfelt moments. Audiences of all ages loved the charm and humor of the film. It reminded everyone that Matthau, even in his 70s, could still mix his rough exterior with warmth and deliver pure comedy gold. The film's success didn't stop there. It led to a sequel in 1995, Grumpier Old Men, which made his late career rise even stronger. People saw that Matthau hadn't lost his magic. After so many years, he still had what it took to light up the screen and make people laugh. He kept working right up to the end of his life. His last film was Hanging Up in 2000. Directed by Diane Keaton, the film came out in February of that year. It told the story of 3 sisters dealing with their difficult aging father, who was played by Matthau. He played a grumpy but vulnerable man, and it felt real. This was the final part of a career that lasted more than 50 years. And what was even more impressive was that Matthau continued to act despite having serious health issues, such as heart problems and kidney failure, and his love for acting never diminished. He continued to act until his death, which occurred early the following morning at 1:42 a.m. on July 1, 2000, at the age of 79. Matthau had been ill for years. He had heart bypass surgery back in 1976, suffered earlier heart attacks, fought pneumonia in 1999, went through dialysis for kidney failure, and even had a non-malignant tumor removed in 1995. His death was a heavy loss for Hollywood. He was buried at Pierce Brothers Westwood Village Memorial Park in Los Angeles. Fans and fellow actors around the world mourned him. Everyone remembered him for his gruff charm, quick wit, and unforgettable presence. His body of work was huge. He acted in more than 20 Broadway plays, appeared in over 150 television shows, and starred in dozens of films. One of his biggest moments came in 1965 when he played Oscar Madison in Neil Simon's The Odd Couple on Broadway. That role won him a Tony Award and made him a star in the film version too. His rough voice, slouched posture, and perfect comedic timing made him a favorite with audiences. His influence went beyond acting. Dan Castellaneta, the voice of Homer Simpson, first based Homer's voice on Matthau's gruff tone. Even though the voice changed later, that original touch of Matthau stayed at its core. Off-camera, Matthau was known for his practical jokes and love of making people laugh. He once made up strange names like Matushansky to see how people would react. And he once joked that his middle name was Foghorn, a humorous reference to his deep, raspy voice. His playful side made his coworkers love him even more.